Hey YouTube, it's ICU, and today we have an important iOS and kind of a jailbreak update to discuss, though the jailbreak segment will occur a little bit later in this video. Today, Apple has seeded iOS 9.3 Beta 3 to registered developers, and when we go ahead and launch up Safari here and navigate to Apple's developer portal, which is at least partially accessible without having to log in, you can see iOS 9.3 Beta 3, and for the post date, it is February 8th, 2016, again, today's date. So Apple has issued a new version of iOS 9.3, which is likely scheduled to be released later this spring. Now we're going to get into the changes found in iOS 9.3 versus 9.2.1 before we actually delve into what Beta 3 has to offer. Though if you want to skip this section, if you already know what 9.3 features, you can do so down below in the more info. There will be a table of contents with timestamps that will allow you to skip to sections of the video that most interest you. So first of all, iOS 9.3 is really the third major 0.1 update, meaning we had iOS 9.1, 9.2, and now 9.3. And unlike iOS 9.2.1, the current public firmware, which was mostly focused on addressing some major security concerns, iOS 9.3 introduces a plethora of new additions, including a brand new night shift mode that is essentially the company's own version of Flux. It reduces blue light exposure at night to make the viewing experience significantly more pleasant. It also improves upon the iPad education program and adds multi-user login support for education-based iPads. It's also the only version of iOS that will function with watchOS 2.2 and add multiple Apple Watch support for a single iPhone. The Notes application has now been improved and allows for the use of locking your notes both with a passcode as well as with Touch ID. It adds quick actions for some of the stock applications on the home screen, including weather, settings, compass, health, app store, and the iTunes store. We also have a revision to the algorithm for the For You section inside of the Apple News application, so that way it's more accurate and more targeted to your preferences. The Health app has a new Apple Watch style activity view, and CarPlay features have been extended upon, and some of the iOS 9 features, including Nearby for Maps, as well as the new and For You sections for Apple Music, have now been added. Alright, so that's iOS 9.3, but what about iOS 9.3 Beta 3? What exactly does the third beta actually bring to the table? Surprisingly, not much. It seems like Apple has been pretty content, at least up until this point, with the previous two betas and the features and changes that they've implemented, because Beta 3 merely introduces Verizon Wi-Fi calling in beta stages, and it corrects an issue with T-Mobile based iPhones that prevented certain applications from loading over a cellular connection. Additionally, it has been noted that the layout for Control Center inside of the previous two betas has now been remedied on select devices running iOS 9.3 Beta 3. Most notably, though, the night shift pop-up feature there that we have when we actually tap on the icon for it. So as you can see, of course, this was added in the previous beta. You can toggle on or off night shift simply inside of Control Center. The positioning has seen some minor tweaks. So what about jailbreaking? Well, that's a great question. Remember, we are waiting on a new jailbreak, really ever since Apple patched the Pengu iOS 9 jailbreak months ago with the release of iOS 9.1. So it was previously reported that Taiji was in development stages of a brand new jailbreak intended for iOS 9.2. Then iOS 9.2.1 went into beta stages, and now we have iOS 9.3 in beta, and iOS 9.2.1 is public. So where's the jailbreak? Unfortunately, while it may not be the popular decision, it seems like with each passing day, it becomes more and more likely that the developers will wait for iOS 9.3 to drop before issuing a new jailbreak. And unfortunately, that means those of you on iOS 9.1 or higher could be locked out of jailbreaking for a few more months at the very least. However, it is still possible that we may receive a surprise jailbreak for iOS 9.2.1 from either Taiji or Pengu, or even a new jailbreak for another team for earlier firmwares, including iOS 9.1 and 9.2, since those two firmwares are vulnerable, though that is very, very unlikely. I just mentioned that because it is still a possibility, as is the potential release of a new 9.2.1 jailbreak from known sources like Taiji and Pengu. They're not going to target earlier firmwares such as 9.2 or 9.1. So for those of you who did update to iOS 9.2.1, you shouldn't really concern yourselves because the chances of a jailbreak being released for an earlier firmware, again, are slim to none. And for those of you who will inevitably bring up the fact that Apple will just continue releasing new versions of iOS even after iOS 9.3, and why wouldn't they just release a jailbreak now for 9.2.1, I'm actually going to discuss that topic in a subsequent video. So if you want the answer as to why that's not really important or relevant as we start to move forward in iOS 9's life cycle, just be sure to click the subscribe button below next to my channel name. That way you will be fully notified when I release said video. All right, so just a very quick update on jailbreak. Now, it's very important to mention the plethora of fake jailbreaks that are beginning to propagate across the web. If you have yet to watch yesterday's video concerning the number of fake jailbreaks that are starting to pop up, as well as how to spot them, then just be sure to watch through it. I will have it linked on your screens now via card as well as annotation format. It will also be down below in the more info for those of you on mobile. Now, let's get into installing iOS 9.3 Beta 3 for those of you who want to. If you're on iOS 9.2.1 right now, then you can upgrade to iOS 9.3 beta and still go back to 9.2.1 if a new jailbreak is released. Though for anyone who is on a lower firmware and you want to stay where you're at, definitely do not update to iOS 9.3 Beta 3. But overall, the process is very easy. All you have to do is just plug your device into your computer via standard USB cable and then launch up iTunes. You also need to obtain the corresponding IPSW for your device for iOS 9.3 Beta 3. From there, just hold down Shift if you're on Windows or Option if you're on Mac OS 10, and then you need to left click check for update inside of iTunes. Once you do, you'll receive a pop-up window. Just point it at your IPSW, open it, and you'll be good to go. From there, iTunes will go through the update process and your device will retain absolutely all of its data. Now, although the corresponding public beta version of iOS 9.3 Beta 3 has yet to be released, for those of you who don't want to go through all of that hassle and you don't want to actually obtain the IPSW for your device, you can simply navigate to beta.apple.com and then sign up with your regular Apple ID. If you've already done that, you can go to beta.apple.com/profile, just sign in with that exact same Apple ID, and then just follow the steps there. Basically, you have to install a profile, reboot your device, then launch up settings, and then go inside of general software update, and you should see a new update for iOS 9.3 beta, and the corresponding public beta for Beta 3 should be released within the next day or two, but if you want to get on it now, you can do so utilizing that workaround method that I just detailed. All right, and I hope you guys liked this video. Remember, we should have additional jailbreak information shortly, and remember, I'm also going to release a video discussing an iOS 9.3 jailbreak and why we shouldn't really concern ourselves too much if a 9.3 jailbreak is released when it comes to subsequent firmwares that could patch it. I mean, eventually it will be patched, but waiting isn't as big of a deal as you'd imagine it to be. So just be sure to click the subscribe button below if you have yet to, like me on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter. That way you'll be updated even more often. You can also support the channel on Patreon, and that way you can actually receive instant jailbreak notifications the very second a new utility is released. Again, check the cards now. I will have a link for that on your screens. And until next time, this is ICU signing out.